Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gripe, the show for short, sweet reviews of new release movies, plus the one thing that annoyed me the most. Today I'm going to be talking about the Angry Birds movie. So, just to kind of give you a little bit of background where this movie came from, if you've never had a smartphone, then I don't know who you are. You're like an oddity in the modern world. But if you do have a smartphone and you've played any kind of mobile games in the last 6-7 years, chances are you've played Angry Birds, which is, the game where you launch birds at, rickety structures set up by nefarious pigs who are trying to steal the eggs. So they decided, when this game exploded into what it is today and became this massive phenomenon, they decided to come up with its own cartoon series and its own feature-length film, which is what we got here, the Angry Birds movie. The movie stars voice acting by Jason Sudeikis, Josh Gad, Danny McBride, Maya Rudolph, Bill Hader. Who else is in there? Hannibal Buress, Titus Burgess, Kate McKinnon, just to name a few. Billy Eichner. So there's a few people. Sean Penn. How could I forget Sean Penn? He does an amazing job of just grunting the entire movie. But basically, so you have, a pretty decent cast of, modern comedians. So you figure, it could be good. Most likely there's going to be a lot of, esoteric jokes that kids aren't going to get, which is absolutely true. There were a lot of jokes that kids would not get at all. And then a lot of very stupid jokes that adults wouldn't get at all either. So, basic plot of the movie is you've got Red, who basically is the, he's the iconic Angry Bird, the red bird. It's where you start with at the very beginning. And Red is an angry dude. He is, he's got a lot of anger management issues stemming from being an orphan and all this stuff. And so as an adult, he's very angry, and his anger gets him into trouble at the beginning of the movie when he's supposed to deliver a birthday cake to, or a hatch day cake to a couple and their kid. And what happens, is the judge sentences him to anger management. And when he goes to anger management, that's where he meets up with Bomb, who is, as you can guess, a bomb type of Angry Bird, as well as Chuck, who is the yellow speed demon bird there. And then the anger management's run by a white bird played by Maya Rudolph, who is obviously got her own issues that she's trying to contain, but trying to keep everybody there from going absolutely ape with their anger. And then Terrence, who's the big giant bird, played by Sean Penn, and like I said, all he does is grunt the entire movie. So you can barely tell it's Sean Penn, almost. Basically, when they're as they're kind of like finding themselves and discovering this, a mysterious ship arrives on the shore and destroys part of Red's house. And immediately Red is distrustful of these people anyway, and it turns out the ship it's run by pigs. He's immediately distrustful, but everybody in the town, led kind of by the judge, who's played by Keegan-Michael Key, sort of embraces them and embraces, the fun that they're bringing to their society. But, of course, Red doesn't trust him. He's, angry and cynical, and that's kind of who he is. So they decide to, get the help from Mighty Eagle, who's played by Peter Dinklage. So they climb up the mountain to go find Mighty Eagle to see if he's actually real, and then get his help on stopping these weird pig people from kind of taking over. They're not sure what the mystery is behind it, but these pigs are just kind of like consuming everything. And then when they finally get, basically Mighty Eagle is no help, so they kind of take it on themselves to, figure out what to do about these pigs. And what happens is then the pigs steal the eggs in town as they're like distracting everybody. They steal all the eggs and, hitch a ride back to their, pig land or whatever, Piggy Island, that's what they called it. Basically so they can eat the eggs. And of course, the birds are devastated. They want to get their eggs back. Because it's basically their children that they're taking away, and so that's when they bring, the slingshot that the pigs gave them, and I'm not sure why the pigs gave them a slingshot, but they did. And so, they take that slingshot, and when they go to the Piggy Island, that's when they start launching themselves to destroy the pig land and get their eggs back and save their children, basically. So, I mean, that's the plot of the movie. It's, as you can imagine, they're trying to eventually get to that, Angry Birds sort of, paradigm that they've created with the video game of launching birds with a slingshot. Because apparently these birds can't fly, and so they decide, the slingshot is the solution to their flying issue. It's very strange that the birds can't fly to begin with. They don't explain that. There's no exposition. You're just supposed to assume that the birds have never been able to fly on their own, with the exception of Mighty Eagle, who has wings apparently, but everybody else just has kind of humanoid hands. So that's the plot of this movie. And if it sounds stupid, it's because it is. It really is a stupid movie. Meant for children, even though there's a lot of jokes in the movie that are definitely more adult-oriented. It's still very much a kid's movie. Plot-wise, just the animation style, the humor, a lot of this, it's aimed to entertain kids and get a laugh out of kids, which is just it's funny that they can make kids movies like Pixar movies and Disney movies that actually have some widespread appeal, whereas this one had almost none. It was really, really rough to get through. A lot of jokes didn't land. A lot of things were just kind of like, oh, I saw that kind of joke coming. They didn't really, nothing was very subtle at any point. But what was interesting about this, and I never really thought about it with the game, but I certainly thought about it halfway through the movie when the pigs steal the eggs and go back to Piggy Island to eat the eggs, is that from the very beginning of this movie, the egg, like at the beginning, Red gets into the situation where he accidentally hatches an egg, and so now this little baby bird thinks, he's his daddy, which, I mean, it's funny and adorable and all that stuff, but you get to the point you get to realize that all the eggs that they have there are fertilized eggs that are basically on their way to becoming hatchlings. So every single one of those eggs has a living bird inside it. And when the pigs take all those eggs, they're not taking like unfertilized eggs. They're not taking eggs that you buy at the market that you open up and you get the yolk and all that stuff. No, they're buying actual like birds that are incubating in these eggs. And so when they talk about eating the eggs, what they're really talking about is eating these baby birds. So throughout the entire second half of this movie, I could not get the thought of infanticide out of my head. That this what this movie was basically a plot about. Was about the family of, very angry citizens trying to get, save their children from infanticide, which is kind of what this movie was about. And it's really disturbing when you think about it. I mean, if they were unfertilized eggs, yeah, that's one thing. But in this case, no, they are definitely fertilized eggs that all hatch. And at the end of the movie, you get this like Schindler's List moment where, all of the, the hatchlings are like thanking Red for, saving the day and all that. And it's like all these hatchlings almost died. This movie was almost about severe baby murder, like baby bird murder. And when you think about it that way, it becomes a horrifying movie. I mean, forget about just like the dumb jokes. I mean, Jason Sudeikis is a funny guy, but he's funny in small doses. Like you can watch him in a movie like Horrible Bosses because at least he's playing off of guys like Charlie Day and Jason Bateman. We're the Millers kind of fell flat because it was him trying to lead this entire movie, and some of the funniest parts didn't even involve him. So, he's not, I mean, he is a leading man, but also kind of not. And then you've got Josh Gad, who is doing really well as a voice actor, especially after Frozen, but not necessarily, I mean, he also too has his moments. Then you throw Danny McBride in there, and Danny McBride is a terrible actor. I mean, Your Highness is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and it's here he doesn't really bring a lot to the table. There's a few moments that give a little chuckle, but for the most part, I mean, the three leads don't bring a lot to this movie. And when you bring in Peter Dinklage and Bill Hader, they both are so over the top. Their characters are so just like, manic and ridiculous that you're just like, okay. Like I said, it's a movie for kids, but even I wonder, like, are the attention spans of children really this short that, a movie that is this spastic and just, all over the place, this is what appeals to them. So, and I guess the answer is yes, because, the movie has made almost $100 million, which, isn't bad for a non-Disney, non-Pixar animated movie anymore. But it is bad. It is a rough movie to get through. And just that thought of like infanticide, just when it popped into my head that was what this movie was kind of about, I was like frozen. Like I couldn't laugh at anything because it's like I'm laughing at them trying to joke about eating eggs and all this stuff, and it's like that's innocent enough if it were unfertilized eggs, but no, these are fertilized eggs with baby birds inside that are all about to be eaten by boiled alive and eaten by pigs. No. That sort of puts a darkness over the movie that, for one, that was not all that funny to begin with, really hurt obviously this movie. It's one of those cases where maybe this is my key gripe. I have a lot of gripes with this movie, anywhere from the writing, which is horrible, the voice acting, which is not bad, but it's also not great for a movie of this caliber. The animation is very cheesy, but above all, what I think my biggest gripe about this is that they take something that is so flimsy, they take such a flimsy premise and try to turn it into a feature-length movie. We saw it with Battleship. Like, Battleship should have never been a movie. Battleship is just garbage because they took a Cold War era board game that is basically just about they completely took the Cold War aspect out of it and instead inserted aliens who for some reason decided to just close off the Navy here without getting too far into Battleship. But the point is that they took this premise that was non-existent and tried to make a movie out of it. Same thing here. They take this non-existent premise of, birds and pigs stealing eggs and the birds throwing themselves at the pig structures to try to, kill them, basically. And they try to turn it into a movie with some sort of message. I don't even know what the message they were trying to teach kids was, besides infanticide is bad. Hopefully that's a message that got across. But the other is that, I don't know, maybe you need community or something to be happy. I don't know. There really wasn't a strong moral of this story. It was mostly just them. I don't know. It was so convoluted and confusing as to what they were trying to achieve to begin with. I think the whole movie was just, the whole attempt at a story was just their, building blocks to get to, okay, now we're just going to show this scene of us launching birds at the buildings, basically, which is what we get at the end of the movie. But it's another one of those examples where Hollywood just takes a premise and stretches it far too thin for what it should be. And the jokes that they make, there's a few puns here and there, but for the most part, a lot of the jokes they make are just the same kind of, like, the jokes that you expect from people like Danny McBride and Jason Sudeikis, just, toned down to a PG level. There's a few lines in there where you definitely could have seen them, the R-rated Jason Sudeikis throwing a joke out there, but no, instead it's a PG movie, so they have to, make it for kids, essentially. So, overall, this movie is just a mess. It is a wreck of a movie. It is, it has a few funny moments, and, a few parts of the movie that actually are entertaining to watch, but overall, it really is a movie for spastic children. Children who really can't sit still through an actual good movie like Inside Out. who have to sit through a movie that is basically just, we're going to throw a lot of stuff at you here, and hopefully something sticks. And if not, who cares? Because, even the movie itself kind of feels almost, like nonchalant about anything. There's no peril. Even when the pigs steal the eggs, there's no peril. It's just, oh, we got to get our eggs back. Let's bring this slingshot they gave us. We can get our eggs back. And when you're left with that overwhelming sense that this whole movie is about infanticide, it really darkens it all. It makes this bright and cheery kind of kids movie into something very dark and very disturbing. So, I give this movie a 4.5 out of 5 for the few chuckles that I had, but it definitely did not need to go down that Schindler's List road, which is kind of what they did, and it just made it a little too heavy, and for a movie that didn't really have a lot going for it anyway, it just made it all the worse. So 4 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5, or 4.5 out of 10, oh my god, 4.5 out of 5, no way, 4.5 out of 10 for Angry Birds. See, I'm stupefied by this movie. So that is my review of the Angry Birds movie. Let me know what you think if you've seen it. Hopefully you haven't, because I don't recommend it at all. But if you have, let me know what you think in the comments below. And I will see you next time on Gripe. Thanks for watching.